kind of progress on that line of just eating a very, very small amount of food and kind of competing against myself of how little I could eat without basically passing out.
Yeah, for sure. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of HPG Engage, the podcast. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. As you know, HPG Engage is a place where we reach out to thought leaders within the healthcare space to speak to them about their careers, their industry, and their hopes and future for that. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Elin Granstrand. Did I get that right?
You got it right. Perfect.
I did. She's a nutritionist, a PT, and a flexible diet expert and founder of Lotus Health Co. Thank you very much for sitting down with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
How are you?
I am great. It's sunny in Sydney. It's beautiful day today, so definitely can't complain.
Yes, true. And we have not been blessed with the weather of late, so it's been good that over the past couple of days we've had decent weather. So we're all feeling in a good mood. We're here today in Virtue's Gym in Bondi. Thank you very much for the guys at Virtue's for lending us this amazing space to record this podcast. I did think, you know what, let's try and see if we can get this podcast recorded in the gym, because obviously we're going to be talking a little bit about nutrition, personal training, and your business. So I thought it would be a little bit more fitting if we were to have the environment to help inspire us. You know what I mean?
Definitely. It sets the mood.
It does set the mood. But firstly, guys that are listening right now, Elin is from Sweden.
Yes.
And you have been in Australia for how long now?
About 8 years. 8 years in January. So
awesome.
A long time now.
Amazing. So just to start off, can you give me a little bit about your background into your health and fitness, your history of sports and your experience from like a young age when it comes to working out, I guess your relationship with diet and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So I come from a very active family. Like my family would always kind of go to for Christmas, for example, my family would go to the gym in the morning and then go and have like big meals and stuff. And they've always been really active. Obviously, I'm from Sweden, so we go skiing a lot. We have, a lot of winter activities. Grown up with dogs, horses, like all kinds of animals. Always been very active in that way. I used to compete at a high level with horses when I was younger.
Amazing.
And I think that kind of kept me, really active and, healthy, I guess, in a way. But then once I stopped doing that, I started getting into more partying and stuff like that.
Yes, I can appreciate
that. The weight kind of, as it's normal, especially as a young girl, going from that kind of 16 to 18, you're getting all those hormones and the changes in your body. And I think I, a lot of other girls, weren't really ready for that. And a lot of girls in my class started doing different diets and stuff. And I was like, well, maybe I should do it as well. They're doing it, so I should probably do it too.
Yeah.
So it kind of just fell into that dieting world that way. And obviously I wasn't riding every day anymore, so I wasn't training. I wasn't keeping the weight off in that kind of way.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really training. But so I started doing dieting that way.
What kinds of dieting were you trying to do? Because I guess I always say people are a product of your environment. So if there's other people around doing these different dieting fads that you read back in the day, would be in magazines and in newspapers. What type of stuff were you doing?
All the teenage girls' magazines. Well, it's very, very unfortunate that a girl in my class was anorexic. She came and she became very popular and she was suffering. She was very open about that she did have an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And it kind of made it a little bit, because she was a popular girl, it was kind of if she's popular, then and she's doing that. It's I'll do that because then I'm a part of her crew, kind of. And I think different people have different, are more susceptible for getting addicted to stuff. So I am someone who really easily fall into that all or nothing kind of mindset. And that happened with this as well. A lot of the other girls were kind of doing the starvation diet for a few weeks, and then they were like, ugh, that's not for me. Well, I kind of took it a bit too far.
Okay.
So I, even after we stopped hanging out, I just kind of progressed on that line of just eating a very, very small amount of food and kind of competing against myself of how little I could eat without basically passing out.
Yeah, for sure.
And it just got to the point where like I was just so sick of lying to everyone that I can't do this anymore, because that was just the worst part of it. That just constant lies to every single person. Like if I was in school, someone would ask like, "Do you want to go for lunch or coffee?" I'm like, no, I ate at home. Before I was at home, I was like, "No, I ate at school." Always making up excuses in that way. So that was probably the first diet that I started. And then after that just completely ruined my relationship with food, even though I didn't have an eating disorder anymore. Because I was seeing like a therapist and stuff. I was still either start like I was like, well, I still need to diet because I still need to lose. I still want to be like skinny. And it kind of felt like that was what girls did. Girls dieted. That's if you weren't on a diet, like there was something wrong with you.
I got that.
So it was, I've done everything like juice cleanses, I've done vegan, I've done paleo, I've done keto. It kind of just like snowballed into that. And I started going to the gym, and then I found out other diets. And
Do you think the time in your life whenever you were, I guess, lying to people saying you were eating came from a standpoint of you were losing the weight, and then people at the time were probably complimenting you on the fact that you lost the weight, and then that kind of, I guess, would motivate you to continue doing what you're doing because you were getting, I guess, that external validation from people within your family or your friendship groups in your community?
Yeah, it's at the start it was a lot of that. Like a lot of people like, wow, you look so good. But then once you start looking unhealthy, like I had bones sticking out everywhere, my skin was pale, my hair was falling off.
Did you notice that yourself, or did someone have to tell you? Okay.
No, I loved it.
Oh, okay.
It's really weird thing. Like if anyone's listening and has an eating disorder, has had an eating disorder, you'll be able to relate that it's like someone else is in your head telling you that you can and cannot eat stuff, and that you should be looking like a skeleton, basically, which is like now when I see people who are like clearly sick, I just feel really bad for them and that they look so unhealthy. But I've looked like that too, and I thought I was still not skinny enough. And when people are telling me you look like you're a skeleton, you need to eat, I would just be like, oh, you're just jealous. You want to look like this too. And it just, I've read a lot about it, and it does something to your brain. It kind of shuts off all those like natural like reactions in your body, like for like just reasoning, talking, like what your values and stuff are. It kind of just shuts all that off, because the eating disorder just takes over your whole personality, takes over all your values, takes over all those like animal instincts that's saying to you that you need to eat, because eating disorder is controlling everything and saying, no, you can't eat. If you're eating, you're failure.
That makes so much sense now from the standpoint of knowing you personally, and I guess your ethos and how you run your business and how you, I guess, promote your business on social media, but also promote healthy eating and nutrition. It makes so much sense. Before you moved to Australia 8 years ago, did you practice to be a PT and nutritionist in Sweden, or did you do that here?
No, so I moved here, and I was with a guy at the time, so I moved here to be with him, and then we broke up about 4 years ago, so I was with him here for 4 years. And had a really, really bad relationship with food still. That's when I kind of started binge eating a lot. Like I would go to the shops, buy all this stuff, all this food, sit in the car, eat it all, and then throw all the rubbish in my neighbor's bin so he wouldn't see what I've done. Like one day I called in sick to work because I was like, no, I just want to stay home and eat. Like,
that's crazy.
It's like,
just
if you know me now,
one extreme to like the other.
Literally. And all throughout the week I ate nothing, and then on the weekends it would be like calories don't count on the weekends, and I would just literally just stuff my face with whatever. Like it didn't even matter what it was, as long as it was just calories. Like I couldn't have peanut butter at home. I would eat the whole jar just like this.
Goodness.
Like I shouldn't laugh because it's awful, but looking back, it's anyway. So that was really unhealthy for me, and I was still very much only training in the gym because I wanted to look a certain way. And I started doing powerlifting kind of stuff, which is, for those who don't know, like you basically bench, squat, and deadlift. So your main compound lifts. And I was enjoying working towards a goal in a gym rather than looking a certain way.
Yeah.
But I could also feel that I was putting on a lot of weight because I was just eating a lot of food, and not very, like, a lot of processed food. So one day I just decided to try CrossFit because I thought it looked really cool, and I fell in love with it, and I just gave up everything else.
Yeah.
And I did CrossFit like twice a day for 6 months, and I progressed like a lot, and then I stopped progressing, and I was like, what's going on? There has to be my diet, because my training was spot on. So I reached out to get help from like a macro counting company, which is basically like macronutrients, like your carbs, your fat, your proteins. So basically the coach gives you a target, and then you calculate, like you decide what you're going to eat basically. But the coach that I had, the company was very based, they really wanted you to eat like clean food.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to go out or something like that, for example, it was kind of like, oh, you mustn't want this bad enough.
Yeah.
So I basically just replaced one addiction with another. So instead of being addicted to binge eating, I was addicted to counting my macros and being like spot on. But I started getting a lot of people asking for advice, because I obviously did lose a lot of weight on it, and I was progressing in gym. So that's when I kind of thought that maybe I could actually do this as a job, because people are already asking me, like I might as well get qualified and charge for it.
Exactly.
But then I also realized that what I was doing wasn't sustainable. Like I was only hanging out with people who were doing the exact same thing. And when you have like, at your environment basically becomes who you are. So I didn't realize that I was doing anything wrong. I just thought that was what everyone was doing. But I went home for Christmas that year, and I brought my food scales with me from Australia. And like my mum, like we're having family dinner, and I was like picking apart everything and putting it on my scale.
Yeah.
And mum's like, "What are you
really
doing?"
are all or nothing, aren't you?
She was like, "What are you doing?" And then, I was like, okay, maybe this is not actually how people live.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that, and I was still studying, but I just randomly fell onto this like article about flexible dieting, and people were eating like donuts and pizza and burgers, and they were training really hard, and they looked amazing, and they seemed so happy. And I was like, surely that is not true. But I was like, I might as well try it and see how it goes. And tried it, loved it, never looked back.
Yeah.
And
I think it's so important, which when we go into talking about your business, that whoever's listening, like, to understand that if you choose to become healthy and fit, it is so important to understand that you're choosing like a lifestyle that you're going to need to do for, I guess, the rest of your time on earth. So to go and do extremes whenever you're trying to get into that is very, very unsustainable for you to I guess, counting your macros every single day of your life, or not eating at all, or eating way too much. It's all about finding that balance, that if you're someone that likes, I guess, to go out and have a drink at the weekend, instead of maybe having a beer, you figure out what alcohol has less calories, so that you're still able to go out and have a good time, but you're also staying within a realm that is quite healthy. And which brings me on to your business, Lotus Health Co.
Yes.
How and why did you start that? And what was the overall, I guess, goal for the business whenever because you have a few coaches that are on your team?
I do, yeah. I started it about 3 years ago. Like I said, like I just started because I wanted to help people, and like my goal with the business was never really for it to be anything. Like I didn't really think that I could ever make a living out of doing what I loved. I was still working like in cafes and disability, just kind of doing whatever bits and pieces to get through. But I was just getting busier and busier, and a year and a half in, I was just getting so busy. So I just kind of said to myself, like, look, you either do this, like you go 100%, or you just have to stop, because at the moment you're just like burning the candles on both ends, and you're just exhausted. You have no time for friends, you have no time to study, you have no time to do anything, because you're just working one of the two jobs all the time.
True.
So I quit my other job, and I just went full in for this. And it's paid off. I've hired 3 coaches now that work underneath me. And the goal was to hire 2 more in the next year. So yeah.
And it's all online based as well, isn't it?
Yeah. It's all online. We have clients all over the world: America, Sweden, UK, Australia.
And what's kind of the overarching ethos? Because obviously, you consider yourself to be a flexible dieting expert. How do you kind of, help your new clients that you onboard to, create a healthier relationship with exercise and a healthy relationship with food? Like what is kind of the way you do that, and with just their overall nutrition?
Yeah, so every new client who comes on has to fill out like a pretty big consultation form, just so we know exactly where they are at, what's their lifestyle, what's their experience, what are their goals, even their living situation, or what they do for work, so we know how much they're making, or where in Australia or in the world that they live, because someone who lives in the middle, like Bondi, is not going to have the same kind of resources as someone who might live down or like in the middle of Australia where there's nothing around.
That's a good point.
So we do take a lot of that into account as well. And I think because I've been doing it for so long now, I can kind of get a sense of what the person is going to be like just from reading the questionnaire.
And I guess someone who works in an office 9 hours a day is going to have a different kind of schedule to someone, who works in construction, or someone who's a nurse, or someone who's a doctor. So it makes total sense that you'd have some sort of lengthy questionnaire for that.
Yeah, totally. And like a nurse, for example, like they're on their feet like sometimes 12 hours a day doing crazy shifts. Yeah, and like shift work, like sleeping, like crazy sleep schedules, and same with like carpenters. But then an office worker, they might say that they're really active, but if they do 3 or 4 sessions a week, that's only 4 hours every week that they're actually doing something. So you have to take stuff like that into account, and also experience and preferences and stuff like that. Like when I first started, I kind of just went with the regular guidelines that the Australia gives you, but now I kind of take my own personal experience working with so many people into account as well, and then I can kind of create a plan for them what they feel like they can actually do this, because if it's too overwhelming, they're not going to do it. They're just going to be like, okay, it's too hard, I can't. So you kind of have to start somewhere where it's just outside the comfort zone, so they can see like, okay, I can actually do this, and then build that trust up within themselves, and therefore also increasing the confidence, and they can say, oh, this is easy, then we can add on to another thing, and then we can add 1 or 2 more things, and they're just building up like that. Like we never start someone up here. Like you want to start low, so you can kind of change gears, and then you just go.
I think that's one of the positive things that has now started to become quite a regular occurrence within the health and fitness industry. I think years ago, if someone wanted to lose weight, they would go to a personal trainer, and they would give them the most extreme diet, extreme workout, and they would just completely run themselves into the ground for maybe 8 weeks. And that's fine if you're training for, a competition or for show. That's completely fair. But for just an everyday person who wants to lose weight, years ago it used to be extremes, whereas now more personal trainers, nutritionists are starting to realize actually the best way for people to live a healthy lifestyle is to create a schedule that they can do and fill in within their actual current day-to-day life. You can't ask people to completely switch up their whole schedule, their whole lifestyle in order to lose weight, because they're not going to be able to do that forever. And as soon as they have one little trigger or one little aspect of their life that adds in that may alter their normal schedule, then the extreme thing that doesn't seem as important, which would be having very little calories and working out 3 hours a day, is going to seem a little bit too much for them. I need to deal with these bills, and they completely push that thing to the side. So at some point that you give them a point that's slightly out of their comfort zone, so they can actually see, oh, this is doable, and then you slowly just progress it from there. And do you find, since you've done that, people are having a better, relationship with their food and with their workouts?
Absolutely. We're all about breaking that all or nothing mindset. Basically what we do is help people break that all or nothing mindset. 90% of the clients who come to us, they say, wow, this is so much food, can I actually eat this much? And they say, well, I can actually have a chocolate or something, and that doesn't make me a bad person. We're all about breaking that mindset. Just this morning I had a conversation with a girl. She's like, oh, this week wasn't so good. And I was like, well, why wasn't good? What's a good week? You're never going to have a perfect week. You can't. there's no such thing. Like, if you aim for perfection, you're never going to succeed because it's just not achievable. Like, when did life go exactly as planned? Ever. It doesn't happen.
I would say you just have to fall in love with the journey.
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
process.
And like, just focus on getting 1% better every single day. 100 days, you're 100% better.
Yeah, I love that. So you are very much into social media. You have a pretty big following on Instagram, but your content is great. Can you talk to me a little bit about, I guess, the impacts of social media on the fitness industry? I guess the positives and negatives, because and we could probably, this could be a whole different podcast, just this subject, but can you talk to me a little bit about what you think the positives of social media in the industry are? Yeah.
So I think the positives are that there's so many good people out there who actually put out really, really good quality content, really good information, like science, like evidence-based stuff, and who are, I think, you know how the algorithm works, you kind of see more of what you actually like. So obviously my whole feed is just full of like flexible dieting, it's full of like body positivity, it's just full of like evidence-based things, where I know a lot of girls who come to us, they're like, oh, I can actually eat this, or they've been doing keto for 2 years, or they've only eaten 1,000 calories for years. But I think it's really good to bring out the information that's actually true and help people feel better that way. And just bring people together as well, especially during lockdown. I found that so helpful. Like, people were connecting through social media, like making friends online. I know so many like friends and PTs and people that I've been collaborating with that I've known from, or that I know from social media.
Mm-hmm. I think that's you've just made some really good points there. I think a lot of people have a very negative view on social media because of all the negative things that you do see on it. But at the end of the day, that is life. There's always going to be positive and negatives. But it's so important that you find the positives and make sure that's the information that you see, because to a level you can control everything that you see there. But for you, in terms of how you use social media, the way you do it's really funny. I love like the voiceovers that you use as well. What's the reason behind kind of using those kind of funnier videos in order to kind of, I guess, educate people on body positivity and, I guess, nutrition in general?
Yeah, well, you only have like people have a very short attention span. So you need to catch their eye straight away. If you are going to be just sitting there talking, like just sitting here against a black wall and just saying information, not a lot of people are going to watch that. Maybe they're really hardcore fitness people who actually do want to learn. Most people don't really care that much about why you're growing muscles when you're doing this, or why this is really good for you. Like, what does it do in your body? What is happening to yourself? Like, they don't really care. So you kind of need to just grab their attention quickly, make something funny out of it, and then they're going to remember it, because if you attach a feeling to something, it's much more likely for you to actually remember the information and the content. So, but I honestly just love it. I love creating videos. I love just showing my personality there. I think that's what kind of makes me different to a lot of other people who just always rocking up, looking absolutely perfect, the hair and makeup done. Sometimes I just roll out of bed and I film something and I put it up and I don't think about it. Like,
so I guess going on from there, you just said you just roll out of bed and then you just film a video, put it up. How do you kind of, I guess, help, because you work with a lot of women in your business, I imagine. How do you help women kind of differentiate between, I guess, what's realistic in terms of a body image and what's, I guess, on social media? Because obviously you have all these images of beautiful people all the time on social media who look absolutely perfect, and I guess it's so easy for both men and women to look at a certain body type and see muscles, abs, perfect legs, perfect hair. Is there a way that you, I guess, speak to your clients and say that is possible, but there is a certain level in terms of what you have to do to get there? Or, how do you differentiate that?
Well, I think it's very important to remember that a lot of these people on social media, it's their job to look like that. For the everyday person, you have to actually go to work. You have kids, you have dogs, you have temptations. Like, if you're getting paid 10 grand a week to not eat donuts, I'm sure you would be able to stay away from that as well.
Stay away from the donuts.
So I think that's something that people have to remember, that these people actually get paid to look like that, but they don't look like that in real life. Like, we live in Bondi. We see these influencers all the time.
Yeah.
They don't look like they do online.
Yeah.
No one looks that good.
It's all about the lighting, the camera angles, the editing. Yeah.
All about the edits, all about the angles, all about the poses. And I think the more you understand and can remember that, when you're looking at it, you can kind of just see, oh, that's a really nice photo. She looks great. And then you can kind of keep
just
scrolling.
Move on,
yeah, you don't have to attach emotions to every single thing that comes your way. You choose how you want to react. You can just look at it and say, cool, amazing.
And carry on.
Yeah, and just remember that no one looks perfect every single moment of the day. They've captured one photo. They might have gone around the corner and cried after that. You don't know.
Yeah.
You never know what's going on behind the scenes in someone's lives. And God, I'm sure you've done that as well. You posted something on social media, be like, oh, having the best time ever. And then you're like, it's actually really boring.
Yeah. That is so true. I think it's important also that we touch on the importance of food when exercising.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different fads out there when it comes to consuming food, either before, during, or after. But do you have any tips on kind of foods that are good for, I guess, someone who needs their mind stimulated or needs the energy when they're going to be, I guess, working all day on a hospital floor, or going into a 10-hour, 15-hour surgery? What kinds of foods would you recommend to someone to eat that should help them, I guess, hold concentration for an extended period of time?
Yeah, so I would go for something with all three macronutrients in it, so carbs, fat, and protein, just because you're going to get that slower release of these nutrients and the energy. While if you have something that is just pure carbohydrates, for example, you're going to get that big blood sugar spike, and then it's going to go crash down, and you might even crash down to lower than you were before, and then you're going to feel really tired, and you're going to have another kind of sugar hit, and then it just goes up and down. And I was actually listening to a really good podcast. You know Andrew Huberman?
No.
Get onto that. But he's a neurobiologist? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Swedish words. Yeah, so he is really famous in America. He's professor at Stanford. And he said that he had just done a study showing that when you eat a bit of chocolate, for example, you get that dopamine hit. So dopamine is like a chemical in your brain that gets released when you have chocolate, for example. And then, first bite, you get that hit of dopamine. But then when you have your second bite, you actually need to have double as much to get the same, to get the same level. So that kind of explains why it's so hard to put down that chocolate. So for someone who's going to surgery or working in an office, that I would stay away from those kind of high sugary foods that do release a lot of dopamine, because it's so hard to say no. Yeah. It's really, really hard. I would stick to slow releasing carbohydrates like fruits, vegetables, whole grain bread, and just having a proper meal. Protein, fats, all the good stuff, and then have that. And then maybe if you are working really, really long hours, then it might be a good idea to have a 10-minute break, stretch your legs, and come back.
Yeah, awesome. We're almost done, but can you give me a little bit about insight into what are your kind of hopes for the future of the fitness industry? Obviously, it's come a very, very long way, and I think, in my opinion, it's come a long way in a positive light. But where do you see it going, and what would you like to see happen? Yeah,
I would love for all of these fad diets to completely go away. Don't know if that's ever going to happen. But I would love for people who have really big followings to actually get called out when they do post stuff that is not benefiting anyone really, except for those people, because they get a lot of money from it. Mm-hmm. A lot of challenges, a lot of diets have zero vegetables or no protein or any fiber or anything like that, and people just don't really know or care. The average person doesn't really understand, and that's fair. I don't know anything about computers. If someone would send me a computer program that was completely wrong, I'd probably be like, looks good. Right, yeah, exactly. And I think that people just need to be held accountable because if you have a big following, you have a lot of responsibility. And I would like for those people to kind of understand what they're actually doing and take responsibility for that. And for it to be a little bit more fake or less fake.
Yeah.
for people to be a bit more real, and for people to show up to the gym without wearing makeup and show up on the Instagram without putting on false filters and not wearing fake eyelashes, and feeling like they're actually good enough just the way they are. They don't have to look a certain way. Like, people are still going to like them even though they don't wear makeup or lashes or whatever it is. And it definitely is going in the right direction, but there is still a long way to go.
And what are your hopes, I guess, for your business in the nutritional online sphere?
Well, I want us to become the best business in the whole world for flexible dieting and changing that mindset. And I honestly think that we are like one of the best ones in Australia, just based on our clients' progress, how much we've helped them. If someone loses weight, great, awesome. But if you actually changing someone's mindset and they can, like, if they come home and they're like, oh, I just went out for dinner yesterday and I didn't binge and I felt great and I was wearing this like skirt and I felt so sexy, that is what I love.
Yeah.
So yeah, just getting more and more out there with that, and just doing, I would love to do more seminars, have one in 2 weeks actually. Just getting out there, spreading the word a bit more and just educating people. Like, that's what I'm so passionate about, like teaching people that it doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, there is another way of living as well that's not so extreme, and that you're going to be so much happier for it.
Amazing. And just to finish off, we're obviously a healthcare recruitment company and recruit across all aspects of healthcare, including personal trainers and nutritionists. But do you have 3 tips that you could give someone who is thinking about, I guess, becoming a personal trainer or a nutritionist and potentially wanting to start their own business? What would you say to someone like that? Any career advice?
Be patient, be consistent, and learn from the right people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There's a lot of people out there who are very scared of saying, I don't know, and they will just make something up. But it's nothing wrong with, like I said all the time, I don't know, but I will find out. And awesome. I think that's the best way to learn.
Perfect answers. Perfect. Thank you very much for sitting down with me. That was a great conversation. Just to finish off, just let people know where they can find you, I guess your Instagram and your business's Instagram or website.
Yeah. So you can find me, my personal one, which is a bit more like funny and body positivity kind of post, is Elin Granstrand. Or you have my business one, which is a bit more educational. It's Lotus Health Co. It's one word. Or it's lotushealthco.com. It's our website.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, everyone.